time to talk about To Be Hero X Episode 7. What actually happened at the end with Isol. A little bit of a spoiler, right? Not a little bit of a spoiler, but a spoiler warning. This is some crazy revelation that happened at the very end. Everyone was awestruck and everybody has a lot of questions. I have 3 options that I'm proposing based on the observations that I've made and some comments that I've read. So first things first, the most normie take right now, which I don't believe in, is OG Isol, right? Some people think that Isol's identity basically did not change at the end because of this simple observation. And what is the observation that we're talking about right now? The observation that we're talking about right now is the fact that bro has the arm, right? That's what OG Isol's like, right? Right hand, he didn't have a right hand. Oh my god, he has a prosthetic arm. It must be OG Isol. Well, that does make sense until you try to think more deeply into the story. And the fact that during the training session where Rock, aka fucking Aizen, prepped up, he was hurt, right? Remember this? Right arm was already foreshadowed to be injured. And at the end of the battle against OG Isol with this lightning blade attack, what I think happened here is it landed at the cost of his arm. And because of that, we see what rises from the ashes. Who do we see the winner, right? Hold on, let me try to find this one segment. I'm gonna have to go by screen by screen. You see someone rise up from the ashes, and it's not very clear, but let's do some more detective work, right? Let's do some more detective work. If you look really close at, presumably, we're assuming that this is Yang Cheng, the young boy. If you look really close into this area, right? You can see that there is elbow flexion happening. And I talked about this in the reaction. If this is supposed to be OG Isol rising up, I don't think that within this, and it's really hard to see, I know, but bear with me. There is a slight elbow flexion happening here, right? This is the stump, but you can also see that there's this separate hinge. Do you see that? It's really hard to see, but I believe that this is basically his right arm being cut off at the end of the conflict, right? So OG Isol, why? Because arm, prosthetic right arm. But I think it's foreshadowing, right? We saw earlier, right? The injury, right? Foreshadowing injury. I don't think this is the case, right? So boom, let's just go with that for a second. I think that as I build this theory throughout the video, like I'm right now improvising it. I literally have no notes. I am straight up just going with it. So build with me. 2205. You can see when they bring the dating chair from Rock's Cafe, why would OG Isol care about some random chair? Let's see 2205. Let's go to 2205. Nice observation made. Brilliant. Right over here. This is the love booth, right? Very good point. This has symbolic meaning. This, well, honestly, so here's the thing. Uncle Rock had a huge Aizen moment saying, "You are ants," right? And I am literally manipulating you ants. Simply by setting up the pieces, the monkeys will behave in the way that I predict them to. While this does have symbolic meaning to Yang Cheng, and again, I believe you. I think I am more on the side of this has meaning to Yang Cheng, that's why it's being brought here. But I'm always trying to like challenge my own thoughts. What I think also could be happening is Uncle Rock is just flexing. This is like a nice little piece. It's not for Yang Cheng. This is more for like Uncle Rock himself because of his, you know, masterful, you know, pieces being set up analogy. And he's just kind of bringing it there as like a little painting in the corner. Not really for Yang Cheng, but more for like Uncle Rock to be like, yeah, I did that. But I don't think that is the case. I think it makes more sense symbolically that bringing the love chair into, you know, presumably Yang Cheng's new room makes more sense. But all right, we have this. let's just get rid of that. I do not think that it is OG ESOL. Another thing that I think that we should kind of build up on is the fact that some other evidence, right? It's a very annoying little graph that we see, but there is this one single graph where we see the both statistics kind of like converging into one, right? Right over here, it is so frustrating in how much misdirection they're doing, because you can clearly see that, like, all right, the ratings for this is OG, right? And this is young Yangcheng, right? Based on the color of the lightning. Like, old is supposed to be purple, new is supposed to be bluish. Thank you, Bat5231, for the 6 months of tier 1. I appreciate that. But you can see that there is this one converging point, and it is very hard to see who actually was there. No matter how you zoom into the graph, because it seemingly just kind of converges at one point, it is very hard to tell exactly who it is. But that's another reason why I believe that it is not OG ESOL. Another thing that happens later on as well is the, basically, what's it called? From the ashes, OG ESOL, the new ESOL emerges, right? And it's the same one. In fact, let's go back. Let's go back to this one. Do we see the lightning flash? In this frame as well, I made a commentary that, like, this looks more bluish, but there is a purple tone to it. But these are different evidences that I'm going to, like, I just want you to keep in mind of these things. But anyways, because it's less purple and more bluish, I don't think this is it, right? There's like that. There's like the couples chair example. There is the lightning hue, right? Lightning color, more blue, you know, dominant. What else is there? The analytics, you know, the trust value graph converging into one, right? Anyways, these are all the different observations that I made, and I don't think it is OG ESOL. Now, let us... Also, another thing, I guess, is Uncle Rock says, isn't the view nice up from here? This is a... Uncle Rock says that, right? Why would OG ESOL care about such thing when he was already living in this tower? Maybe I'm wrong about it, right? But I remember someone saying, like, why would Uncle Rock say, isn't the view nicer here? Now, maybe, you know, ESOL raised up ranks and he's going up the tower, right? But, like, I feel like there are some things that Uncle Rock said. OG ESOL was #1 in the past. Yeah, that's another thing, right? He literally was Title X, right? He beat Zero in the trailer, right? So, there's another one. Beat Zero in trailer, became X. Why would he care about the view? Right? The view from the top. To me, it makes it seem like this is like his cousin, his nephew that he's talking to. So these are all the different reasons. Like, OG just wouldn't care about stuff like that. At this point, we don't have just one thing, but I think the couple chair definitely plays into it. And many different observations that proves that OG ESOL, that's not it. Let's build a case now for... He was X? Yes, apparently a lot of SCHIZO analysts have zoomed in on 2B Hero X, and they have basically done some investigation and realized that after beating this person named Zero in the past, OG ESOL became X or something. All right, number 2. ESOL. Yang Cheng is ESOL. This is where I was kind of at until recently today. This is what I believed in the reaction to. It's really hard in the heat of the moment to be able to come up with these theories and really talk about it. But let's build a case for, is it Yang Cheng? Well, first of all, everything that basically refutes, you know, OG ESOL from being the last guy pretty much builds into this, right? Foreshadowing, right? Foreshadowing with injured right arm, right? We've already seen that. And I've shown you guys here, right? That there is, you know, this section that's been foreshadowed during the training that we've already seen, right? Lightning color more like blue than purple, right? I think that is absolutely true. Couples chair being brought into new place. Uncle Rock's, you know, isn't this nice view, right? Makes more sense, right? Makes more sense for Yang Cheng. Those are just off of these though. Now, there's some other things that I wanted to talk about. What was it? Fuck. What was I trying to bring up here? I think that it kind of has to do more with Uncle Rock's identity. Why would Unc Rock plan all this just to get OG Isol, right? Let's think about that first. At this point, we have to start thinking from the perspective of Unc Rock, because this guy has been preparing this from the beginning. And if you don't know, Unc Rock's identity, he is supposed to be another person who is very high up in this hero management and is competing against this guy, Mr. Shand. They're all part of the Tree Man group, right? And I'm not sure of the corporate structure of the Tree Man group. In fact, I thought that Unc Rock was from a different company entirely different. And this guy is Tree Man group. But even if Unc Rock is in a competitor of Tree Man group or even within Tree Man group, I think it can still make sense that both are basically competing for top heroes, because at the end of the day, top hero you're managing, more money. MG group doesn't even matter. What I'm trying to say is, like, Isol is MG, okay, perfectly fine. Even if we go with that logic, what I'm trying to, don't think about like the specifics, think about two separate entities competing over heroes to basically monopolize them and make money off of them. Even if they're different groups, I think it makes sense. Even if this guy didn't own, OG Isol, and basically, Unc Rock is part of the same group that is from, Isol's group, he's basically trying to take away heroes and basically like manage it himself so that he can be at the top. And Shand here, even if he's not even part of the same corporate structure, by the fact that he's simply another like billionaire status person, or maybe they have history. Maybe instead of thinking like they're trying to compete and poach away heroes like that, maybe there's past histories and there's competition happening, some sort of rivalry. And I thought that maybe Unc Rock intentionally set it up to kill off his son, because we do know that Unc Rock is the one that set the shit up. What better way to cripple your competitor or some sort of old rival or some sort of like nemesis that you have than, create a scenario where at the end, your rival's son dies, you get to secure Isol somehow. So thinking it from this like motive-based, incentive-based angle, I think it does make sense that Unc Rock, right? Unc Rock wanted to basically, how should I do? Secure Isol under his management and, basically knock off competition. Again, the details, I don't know exactly which group, which organization, which faction they're all in, but if we assume that Isol is part of, it's basically like MG versus Tree Man, it doesn't even matter. What matters is the identities of Mr. Shand and Unc Rock, and the fact that Unc Rock is trying to take away Isol from this, this guy, right? Like the pink suit guy, right? The pink suit guy, he's part of MG Entertainment or whatever. They have, currently OG Isol. Maybe Unc Rock is also part of the same organization, and he uses opportunity to basically take out, his competitor's rival son. Maybe that wasn't even planned, but at the same time, create an incentive to use his cousin as well, right? Sorry, his nephew as well in this whole plan to take over Isol's, management. Okay, so there's stuff like that happening. Okay. If we assume that his goal from the beginning was to, again, take out the old OG Isol and plant his nephew into this new Isol title, which is a hero that's already been established, to make it up in the ranks of the hero ratings, right? I think that these things make sense, that this is new Yang Cheng, all right? But here's the thing where option 3 gets even better, okay? Hold up. To be fair, he hired a thug to kill young Isol. The wrong kid was just wearing the helmet. You know what? That's a very good point. Let's think about this for a second, just before we go to option 3, right? He hired the thug to kill young Isol. The wrong kid was just wearing the helmet. That is true. Unc Rock did hire the hit. And the timing of this is very convenient. Because how much did Unk Rock know? If maybe some other people could analyze the episodes, but could we think that Unk Rock actually knew in advance that, you know, only, you know, Shang would be at the hideout? If Shang was at the hideout working on it and he knew that, you know, like you could like do some mental gymnastics right now and say that Unk Rock has a bunch of like men that is stalking his nephew, and he knew at that moment that the nephew would not be at the factory, that he was literally at, you know, somewhere else. And then he hired the assassin and basically took out Shang. That is mental gymnastics to argue for the sake of Aizen just knew everything. But there is a very interesting, you know, thought process of, did he want to kill his own nephew? What would happen if his nephew was killed though? Do you think that maybe someone else would take up the mantle? That is a very, this thing definitely, like this, the contradiction, right? This is a contradiction that I think has to be acknowledged, and I don't know how to answer it. Because I want to believe that, you know, Unk Rock basically planned this and knew his nephew was not there. And another thing, would Uncle actually kill Yang's parents a long time ago and not hesitate killing Yang Qing's own nephew? See, I think that like Unk Rock planned this shit so that his nephew, you know, would be like an orphan, so that Unk Rock would have his, you know, hands around him and mold him to what it be. And with that logic, like thought process, I truly think that his nephew is simply a pawn, a tool being utilized. And in this contradiction, Unk Rock already knew that, you know, his nephew would not be the one to be hit. Again, the crazy mental gymnastics I'm doing right now to kind of like argue against this, but let's definitely acknowledge this because this is an interesting thought process. Now, let's go with option 3, right? The biggest question is, why would Yang Cheng kill Moon? Because if we look at the design of Isol here at the end, this is the one that showed up at the end of episode 4 and assassinated Moon. Why would Yang Cheng do that? Now, he just simply, you know, you could say something like this: gaslit by Unk, emo arc, you know, emo arc, bro is too edgy now and just listens to Unk to kill people. Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. I could believe that. Manipulated, you know, gaslit. But here's where things go beyond nuclear, okay? And at this point, you're really gonna have to let your imagination play out, okay? You have to really let your imagination play out. In my reaction, I mentioned maybe this is not even Yang Cheng or OG Isol. Maybe Unk Rock created a scenario where he can plant his own separate agent into the body, into the position of Isol and ride the hype and secure his status as like a top hero manager. And with that line of thinking, right? Did Unk Rock, you know, place another third party, you know, candidate as Isol? If so, then I could be like, okay, this is some sort of mercenary hire and he's just doing shit. But that's not really fun to me. That's not really like that enticing to me. That like, oh, what? Your nephew's gone, and same with OG Isol, and you just plant a third party and it's like, whoa, big plot twist, and now he's like a mindless, you know, goon that can handle out your orders? That could make sense. Or option 3. Ready? Ready? Yang Cheng and OG Isol fusion their soul. Yes, that's what I'm saying right now. And hold on, let me cook. This theory is very fun to me, right? And we're talking about this right now, all right? We talking about this right now, okay? And the reason why we're talking about this right now, and hold up, let me bring back like some old faces, right? So let's see. We got we got that's too big. We got OG Isol and we have Yang Cheng. Let's get a good face of Yang Cheng. Come on, show me your face, Yang Cheng. Where is he? Okay. And then we got this one. Zoom in. Oh, come on. Sorry, bear with me, guys. Bear with me. Come on. And the reason for this, okay, is a couple things. And it is truly... like, we are really doing mental gymnastics at this point, but I think there's a lot of compelling evidence that we've seen. First things first is the fact that, you know, this, okay, just like symbolic, just random imagery and basically just like bullshit. First off, let's look at the graph, right? And I am so down with this because this kind of like makes sense the more you think about it. So at the end here, right, we clearly see, right? We clearly see that the two electric lines are merging into one, right? And listen, just because the lines that are supposed to be old and new are converging into one doesn't mean that this is a new fusion version. But you can kind of have fun with that, right? You can kind of be like, whoa, foreshadowing, man. Both E-souls combined into one, right? So let's just kind of have fun with that. Remember, you got to be very open-minded for option 3, right? Fusion their souls. Well, we know about E-soul, like, right? So some people are saying the fact that soul exists in E-soul's name, and then the fact there's all their, like, you know, soul fusion, and there's like the title of E-soul being shared, right? There's all this different shit, right? The fact that E-soul stands for electronic soul, you know? Maybe there is some sort of power mechanism that exists for E-souls where they truly can become one like that. I don't know how the fuck this works, bro. But I think that there is a compelling, you know, observation being made and future motives that make sense. Because if we go with the idea that E-soul somehow merged, now it makes sense that this new person is not a mindless zombie, but rather like some entity that's been created by Unk Rock so that it's just mindless, not mindlessly, but basically like listening to, you know, like these orders. Does that make sense? You know what I'm talking about? So the first option again is the fact that it's OG E-soul. I don't think it is. Second option is Yang Cheng, and I think that's a lot more believable. But there are some conflicts with motives that happens of what about moon stuff that makes people really think. And if we go with the idea that this third person is a combination of OG E-soul and new E-soul put into one, now you don't really have to think about like the character of Yang Cheng in question and why he would deal out these like mercenary hits under Unk Rock rather than him just being manipulated and gaslit. Maybe we can have fun with it and think like, you know, two people converge into one. It's like a new personality now. It's like a mindless drone. Unk Rock's ultimate goal at the end of the day was used to use this opportunity to basically poach E-soul away from his competition. And who knows exactly how much, you know, vendetta he had against Mr. Shan from Tree Man Group. I don't know if they're previous rivals. I don't know if there's bad history going on behind it. Did he even intend on Shang, his son, to die? I don't know. But what I do know are these observations made, and the more I think of it, the more plausible that it becomes that this person is OG and new E-soul into one, and I rest my case. At the end of the day, I am definitely on the side of option 2 and 3. I do not think that this is OG E-soul, and everything I could have said just now is all bullshit. Everything that I just listed here are just my schizo observations and my opinions being formed with other people commenting to help me out. And hopefully, you guys have also came to your own schizo conclusions. And at the end of the day, who knows, man? We'll just have to keep watching to find out who is this new E-soul.